We're back. We're so glad to have you with us. This is Black Thought, and I'm your host, Dr. Hutchinson. We have as our guest Dr. Frank Anthony Thomas, the recently retired senior servant of the Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church, and I want to highlight this book. You see it? The Choice. We're going to really talk about this now. You need to get a copy of this book, and I want to give you a quick hint. I'll talk about it later during the show, but I'll give you a quick hint. You don't have to run to the bookstore to get this. You don't have to figure out where it is. All you have to do is come by First Baptist Church Lauderdale this evening, and there's a copy of this book with your name on it. But I'm digressing. I'll get into that later. But want to get into some of the substance in this book. Of course, you can call us at 527-2414, 527-2414. All right, Dr. Thomas, again, glad to have you. Talk to us about why you decided to write this book and what was behind the subject matter of this book.
Well, I was in a very intense and very prayerful moment about whether or not I was going to retire from pastoral ministry. And while there are some resources, there was not the kind of resource that I was looking for. So what I experienced myself as doing is, what many people don't know is that the sermon is like the tip of an iceberg. So when you hear the sermon from your pastor, that's the tip. And like an iceberg out in the Atlantic somewhere, the majority of the iceberg is under the water. So what many people are not aware of is that underneath the surface, the pastor is going and thinking and praying and talking to God. So I had all these thoughts and all these feelings, and I had nowhere, so I began to write them. So all of a sudden in the book, there's the sermon, and then there's the backstory behind the sermon, which is all the stuff that I'm thinking and feeling that I can't put in the sermon because it distracts the people, it puts the focus on me, and that's not the intent of the sermon. You know, Christ is the focus of the sermon.
Exactly.
So it gave me a place where I could write, and for me, writing clarifies what I think and feel. When I write, I understand what I think and feel. So I would write the sermon, and then after I preached the sermon, I would write the backstory.
Wow.
And so it's in the backstory that with prayer I made the decision to retire, as you know, which is tremendously unusual. Mississippi Boulevard is a great church. People ask me, why you leave that great church? Man, you could have just rode the thing out to the end. And I'm like, well, if I ride it out to the end, I rob myself and I rob the church. So I made the decision.
Okay, thank you. Let's take this call. Good morning. This is Black Thought. You're on the air.
Morning, Dr. Hutchinson. How are you?
Doing well.
And to your great guest, Dr. Thomas, there was many years ago, back in the latter part of the 80s, back in Illinois, that I met Dr. Thomas with my pastor, Bishop Larry Trotter. And it's so good to see he's looking good. And
thank you.
So good preaching to do to you, make you look good. And he's a great leader. It's good that you have him on. It's been a long time since I've seen him, but he's looking great. And Dr. Thomas, you need to come on out of retirement. Every good preacher won't retire until the Lord says so. So you have a good day. It's good to see you. Dr. Hutchinson, bless you. Hope to see you on the 20th.
All right. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for your kind words. I just want you to, I haven't retired from preaching. I just retired from pastoral ministry, from being a pastor. I'm always a preacher. And I'm always a pastor too, though I don't particularly serve any one church right now.
And that's a great answer, because if he had retired from preaching, he wouldn't be getting ready to do what he's going to do this evening. So we know he hasn't retired from preaching, but thank you for calling. But now, as you talk about what's a part of the backstory, and it's awesome the way you described it, because it sounded as if you wrote the sermon, you wrestled with writing the sermon, and then when you preached the sermon after writing the sermon, the backstory became clear enough that you could write it down, put it in the words, and then use it to show all of the things that are behind the sermon. Because a lot of people don't realize that when they hear a sermon from their pastor, they probably hear just a portion
Right.
of all of the research and all of the other things that go into the sermon. A lot of things, as they say in movies, goes to the cutting room
Right,
floor.
that's right, that's
but
right.
you got a chance to put that in the
Right.
book so that people can see it. But now, let's talk about the process. We don't want to reveal too much because, again, you all can buy the book. You hear what I'm saying? You can buy the book. And trust me, I've read about a third of this already, and you want to buy this book. You really, we don't have time enough to tell you everything that's in here, but you really want to buy this book. But anyway, talk to us about the process, because this is anchored around you wrestling with retirement. You know, you just heard a caller say you shouldn't retire from preaching, and you know, this is unusual. I mean, you revealed you're in your late 50s,
Right.
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 So now, in your late 50s, you're retiring from pastoring. So tell us about the thought process, the wrestling, and
All right, I'll give you an example. One of the sermons in the book is called Have To versus Want To. Now, I preached that sermon in July in Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church. Both campuses, Mississippi, but they heard that sermon. Have to versus want to. Are you leading your life? Are you serving God because you have to or you want to?
Mm-hmm.
Because want to has an element of freedom, of joy in service. Have to has bondage. I have to go to work. I have to. So the sermon was about who for the joy set before him. Jesus gave his life because he wanted to, not because he had to. And I was challenging the whole church to serve and follow God out of want to versus have to, and then to give some reflection about their job. Well, the real deal behind that for me was I was trying to decide as a pastor, am I serving as a pastor Mississippi Boulevard because I have to or because I want to? So I've been a pastor for 31 years of my life, and I began to feel like that it became a have to for me. Nothing wrong with the church. I ain't talking about the church. I'm talking about what's in me. And it began to feel like bondage. It felt heavy. And I wasn't excited and joyous. And I believe that the people deserve a pastor who's excited and who's joyous and who's glad. So I had to be honest with myself that I was doing this because I had to versus because I wanted to. Okay, so then what would I do if I did what I wanted to? I would teach. Well, what would I teach if I did what I wanted to? I would teach preaching. And so, well, what's stopping me from doing what I want to? So my wife, and I'll make this real short, my wife in this whole process kept asking me, well, what is God saying to you? What is God? I know how you feel because we talk about it all the time, but what is God saying? And I said to her, I said, God said to me that I've been faithful for 31 years. And the reward of faithfulness is, God says, choose whichever one you want. You can stay if you want, or you can go if you want. You've been faithful. I give you the freedom of choice.
Lord have mercy.
So I chose to go. And I think it's been the best decision for me. I think it's the best decision for the church. They have an exciting pastor, Jason Turner. Got a new pastor who's excited. The church will move. I'm excited in my preaching. You know, I'm preaching at Christian Theological Seminary. I'm excited. I'm getting ready to really get going in that. And so I think when we're honest with each other and we pray before God, it ends up being a win-win for everybody.
I'm just sitting here in awe because I started reading that sermon. That's where I am in the book, have to versus want to. And y'all, get this book. Good morning. This is Black Thought. You're on the air.
Good morning, Dr. Hutchinson. How are you doing this morning?
Doing well.
Yes, sir, and good morning to Dr. Thomas, too, as well.
Good morning.
Listen, I'm sitting here and I'm watching the show, and I wanted to say to Dr. Thomas, I'm going to hang up, and I just wanted to see if you could expound more on when you said we have enough pastors, what the people need is shepherds. And if you could just expound on that just a little bit more, because I'm really enjoying listening to you two young men. And if you could expound on that a little bit more, I would definitely sit here and be inclined to listen. God bless.
And thank you for calling, brother. Keep watching.
And thank you for that great question. I think it goes back to what Jesus says when he said, the text says he looked out at the people and they were like sheep without a shepherd. a sense of lostness in the people. I think that has something to do with this almost worldwide joy about the Pope, the new Pope, that we do have a Father who cares for us, who will protect us, as he said, who will shepherd us, who will guide us. And I think that we all need pastors. And it's a high calling to shepherd people. It's a tremendously, I didn't leave because I disrespected the calling. I left because I respected the calling enough not to, if I couldn't do it with joy, don't do it. The people deserve a joyful pastor.
And that's commendable. Good morning, this is Black Thought. You're on the air.
Good morning, Dr. Hutchinson. How you doing? Yes, I was sitting here listening to you and Dr. Thomas. It's very amazing, amusing that I'm talking. I gotta like his analogy, and it made me think about one of the verses I was reading in the book of Job, and in the 2nd chapter of Job, it said, "A great man are not always wise, neither do the age understand judgment." All
right. Keep talking. Don't listen to your television. Talk to us.
And I mean, and it just touched me that, okay, the words, the wisdom, and the knowledge that he has expired to be, and what he is it have, though, that people of the nation could listen and to learn, though. And it inspires me so much to hear you and him to put the word and the truth out there, because if someone told me back here a few months ago, they said, brother, if you want to know the truth, you start from the book of John to always to the book of Revelation, and when you get through, you start back in Genesis, and you get a relationship with God, and you know God for yourself. And Dr. Hutchinson, that's what I have done, though, and so I'm sitting here now, though, in the book of Job, and it really inspired me with the strength and the knowledge and the wisdom, and like he could say it, but Job, and it would have put in front of him, though, that he never denied and he never God was an unrighteous man that ever walked the earth of this nation. And I'm sitting here and listening to more of you and Dr. Thomas, and y'all have a great and blessed day.
All right, thank you, brother. Good morning. You're on Black Thought. Good morning. This is Black Thought. You're on the air.
Yes, sir. How you doing, Dr. Hutchinson? McKinney.
Doing well, sir.
TSU alumni.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Dr. Thomas?
How you doing, sir? I'm doing well. How about
what
yourself?
What part of Illinois where you from, sir?
Pardon me?
He said, what part of Illinois were you from?
Oh, Chicago.
He said Chicago.
I thought it was outside, like Glenwood or...
Oh, that's where I pastored in the south suburbs in Madison,
okay,
Illinois.
I'll move on.
Yeah, you're correct.
First thing, I like what you said about, I in leadership capacities like pastors. I never knew what y'all had to go through. I can imagine. But I always thinking about what Paul did. Paul said, "I fought a good fight. I kept the faith."
Yeah.
And he finished the course. So apparently you hadn't finished the course yet.
Right.
But and then I thought about Benedict 16. Now he could have stayed on too, couldn't he?
Right, exactly.
And he decided, I think I'll just, go ahead and let someone else carry on.
Right.
But I just want to know, maybe you could expand on those two ideas.
Well, I'll expand on that for the sake of...
Thank you, sir. Go right ahead.
For the sake of time, I will expound on the second idea. And it's really, the analogy is for a cancer cell in your body. And a cancer cell is a cell that does not have the gene to die. So for other cells to live, a cell has to die so that a new cell can be born. So what cancer is a cell that refuses to die, and it spreads and it spreads. So if we don't have the ability to die, to turn ourselves off, to give up a position, to no longer be the chairman of the deacon board so somebody else can serve, to no longer, be the usher, the head of the usher board so somebody else can serve, then we become like cancer. And I'm not saying everybody that's been in a position for a long time is cancerous. That's not what I'm saying. Don't miss my point. My point is there comes a time when all of us, if we miss the point to die, to give it to somebody else, to let somebody else lead, then we become cancerous.
That's well said. Well, we're getting ready to take our last break. We're going to come back, have some final thoughts from Dr. Thomas, and we're going to tell you where you can see Dr. Thomas tonight. I'll give you a little hint. I almost choked on my own joke. First Baptist Church, Lauderdale. You can see him tonight, but we're going to get to that in a minute. This is Black Thought, and I'm your host, Dr. Hutchinson. I just had a black thought. Put your mind in gear and put your thinking cap on.